Yeah, okay, so now a Beetlejuice 2 and another Transformers prequel are both good. So I guess there's just no rules anymore. Yeah, but this is, wow, this is fucking shocking. There's now a very real chance that a goddamn Transformers movie is gonna be like a nominee for animation awards. That's craziness. Now, look, I am a fan of Transformers stuff, possibly more than I am of certain other stuff. Even I cannot bring myself to try and follow what continuity Transformers is in at this point, or what counts and isn't supposed to count. This feels a lot closer to a G1 movie than it does to anything else, however CGI it is. Feels very old school, also very new school. As a guy who more or less checks out of Transformers after G1 and the Bumblebee movie and appreciates Beast Wars, sure, I felt right at home in this, more so than in a lot of other things. But yeah, this is really good stuff, man. And I find myself very surprised saying that, because the trailers looked, yeah, alright, fine, sure, whatever, but damn, this is really solid filmmaking, which is not something you expect to ever be saying about Transformers stuff, which generally you can describe as being good, ... within the context of Transformers. But no, this is actually a very solid movie about cartoon robots. Like an actual good movie happens to be about Transformers. So the pitch here is an Optimus Prime origin movie, but it's really more of an origin reboot deal for the brand concept centered around the main character. We have a new backstory in which the Transformers homeworld is in a war and a couple cycles in the recent past, or not so recent. I'm not sure how the time scale is supposed to work since these are machines, but it's recent enough that some of them have memory of it and some of them don't, where they are in a war with the Quintessons, which are now more techno-organic xenomorph Cthulhu type guys in this version, which has knocked out the natural energon resource of their planet, so they have to mine for ore rather than just having it flowing all the time. And Cybertron now in this period has itself a pretty rigid caste system where there's two distinct types of Transformers, ones who can transform and thus get to be whatever they want to be, and ones that cannot transform and are always in their robot mode, and those are the ones that have to do all the mining. So like Transformers are the upper class and the Just Robots are the working class. And you can just feel the screenwriter sitting back and feeling, ooh, autonomy, Autobot, oh, that's good, when they landed on that one. And yet, it works. And of course, along with being an origin story, as goes in the traditional G1 version Transformers backstory, this is also a best friend breakup story between, in this version, non-transforming Transformers, at least as it starts out, who will grow up and become Optimus Prime and Megatron, the good guy and bad guy leaders. So in this version, as it starts out, they are two mining robots named Orion Pax, later Optimus Prime, and D16 Megatron. Orion Pax is the reckless but hopelessly optimistic guy who likes to break rules when it will be for a good cause, and D16 is the one who thinks that if he follows the rules rigidly and does what he's told and stays in line, will benefit him and allow him to move up the ladder. Through a series of events, they come to believe that they have discovered the location of the lost Matrix of Leadership, an artifact that it is believed will help restore Cybertron's energon and put everything back together, and that if they find it, they will be cool heroes and show that the lower class non-transforming robots are just as good as the Transformers, and that this will fix everything in their world. They go on a quest to find this and instead discover, I hope you're sitting down for this one, folks, that the history of the war on their planet, the actual nature of the class system that they were born into, and the rules of who is and is not able to transform is not something that their leadership has been entirely honest with them about. Yes, this is a kids movie, and people who are not themselves kids will almost certainly see this coming basically right from the start. But what's important is the fallout of it and the story that it tells, and the story that it tells is actually really, really solid. Because this comes in not even really at the midpoint, and the story they're actually telling is about what these characters do with this information once they have it. Because what they're framing this around is Pax, the one who will be Optimus Prime, looks at this and says, okay, now at least we know who the bad guys are. We can take this information and also now the ability to transform and help others and change things for the better. Whereas the one who will be Megatron looks at this as, no, I am angry. I did everything I was supposed to do. I feel personally betrayed. Now I just want to burn it all down and be in charge myself. And that's a really interesting thing to do with this and these two characters, because you can really see where both characters are coming from. The voice acting is very strong. I know people are not super thrilled that they used mostly a recognizable celebrity voice cast for a lot of these characters rather than established animation voice actors, or for the most part the traditional Transformers actors. These are different versions of the characters, and many of them begin to sound more like their traditional versions as it goes on. In some cases there's gags or visualizations as to how and why that happens that is very amusing. But interpretation-wise, just about every hero-villain movie these days says, oh, our villains are more gray, they're more complex. But this one actually means it. That takes a very long time before Megatron, this version of Megatron, flips all the way over to being the character that we're more familiar with in terms of actions, and they spend a good amount of time building up to, okay, this makes a lot of sense as to how this person winds up like this. And also why this character who will eventually be Optimus Prime goes from being someone who is more of just a rebel because he's a little more restless and optimistic, is where they're getting to the Optimus part of this, into someone who basically gets talked by his friends into being more of the leader figure that we know, and in ways that really make sense. And it's very strong writing, very interesting stuff that they're going with. Very strong storytelling, very convincing, very compelling. The allegory for being a Transformer and being able to make decisions about what you want to be is fairly simple, but it makes sense. It's a sensible, interesting thing to do narratively with this brand. The animation looks gorgeous. The character animation is very strong while still not really cheating other than in the faces, as to the fact that these are boxy robots that turn into cars and planes and such. You know, I've done long retrospective stuff elsewhere on this channel about the original Transformers movie and such, and I think one of the reasons that stuck around so long with people, even with the parts of it that were objectively weak on the narrative side, is that it took itself fairly sincerely, connected with a younger audience in being stronger than it needed to be. Yes, there were silly episodes, but things like the death of Optimus Prime, episodes like the Golden Lagoon, were really treating the audience like they could engage with a level of sincerity. However, couched within, yes, a marketing cartoon designed to sell action figures. And this is almost like a more polished, streamlined version of that. I had a great time with this. I think it is very worthy. 8 out of 10 if you're a Transformers fan. If you are just a younger person who just loves robot stuff, if you like animation, I recommend this movie. Transformers 1, this is another one. I can't believe it's as good as it is.